Alright, so um this is like one of my first times doing this, so I'm sorry for that, but I guess let's just get like right into it. So right here I've got a weak auras talking about my steward basically, and that's kind of all it's really just for PvP. So if you want that, I can give it to you. If not, that's whatever. I've got my trinkets here. For the purpose of this video, we'll just go and use the Aspirant's badge instead of the shackle since it's for PvE, and the freedom trinket because I don't really want to use anything else. So, how I normally start my pulls for the maximum damage is we'll just actually go over here. I Judgment, Blade of Justice, Seraphim, Wings, Divine Toll, Final Reckoning, Templar's Verdict, Wake of Ashes, Templar's Verdict, Hammer of Wrath, Templar's Verdict, Blade of Justice, Crusader Strike, Templar's Verdict, Judgment, Blade of Justice, Templar's Verdict, Blade of Justice, Crusader Strike, Templar's Verdict. And that's kind of the opener there. Um, Obviously, I know I did that pretty quickly, but you just Judgment, because you can do that while you're running into melee range. Blade of Justice. Then you can Seraphim. Okay. And right now, as you see, I don't have cooldowns up, so we'll just wait a second. But then you can Judgment, Blade of Justice again, Templar's Verdict, Wake of Ashes, Templar's Verdict, Blade of Justice, Crusader Strike, Templar's Verdict, and now I've got these two up. So I'm going to Divine Toll, Final Reckoning, Templar's Verdict, Blade of Justice, Templar's Verdict. And it really all plays out because if you get a proc of Blade of Justice, you're going to want to use that over anything else, basically. And right now, since I have no more generators, I just use both my Crusader Strikes. But that's okay because they regen fairly quickly because I have a lot of haste. Um, yeah, I'll just scroll through this pretty quickly so you can kind of see what I was talking about if you want. Alright, and that's kind of like the boss rotation. Alright, just really prioritize Judgment and Blade of Justice over your other generators. And I generally try and only Wake of Ashes while I'm in Seraphim because that lines up really nicely with a Final Verdict, and then directly after you Divine Toll and Final Verdict again. And then for like an AoE pack, this won't be the best because they're kind of spread out, so I don't know if my Divine Storm will hit them all, but you really still want a Judgment, Blade of Justice, Seraphim, Trinket, Wings, Divine Toll, Final Reckoning, Divine Storm, Blade of Justice, Divine Storm, Hammer of Wrath, Blade of Justice, Divine Storm, Wake of Ashes, Divine Storm, Crusader Strike, Judgment, Divine Storm, Blade of Justice, Hammer of Wrath, Divine Storm. And that's pretty much what that looks like. I peaked there at 14k, I believe. And single target, I don't remember what I peaked at. I'll have to go back and look at the footage and whatnot. But I'll go over that one more time without like the big cooldowns. It's just Judgment, Blade of Justice, Divine Storm, Crusader Strike, Blade of Justice, Divine Storm, Crusader Strike, Crusader Strike, Judgment, Divine Storm, and I still got over 5k there. Um, it's kind of almost up to RNG, if you get those Blade of Justice procs. I tend to get them quite a bit, so I base most of my rotation around it, which isn't necessarily a good thing, but it works because I get quite a bit of damage. Um, and in terms of like using your blessings and stuff like that, really only bubble, if you're in deep shit and about to die. I actually get greedy and use Shield of Vengeance for damage instead of survivability, which isn't smart. Don't do that. Use it for survivability unless you're 100% positive you won't die, and then you can sacrifice it for damage. Um, Bop really doesn't have like a whole ton of uses because not a ton of the mobs in the dungeons do physical damage. They all do some sort of like magic, bleed, arcane, stuff like that. Um, it would really only be good against like some of the dudes in Necrotic Wake and Theater of Pain. And other than that, you're probably not going to get a whole ton of use out of this. You can obviously use it to drop aggro if you have it, and then Blessing of Freedom to get out. I would also recommend using Blessing of Sacrifice if you ever see Muriel in trouble. You could just sack her, and she might survive through it, which would be like a pretty good thing. Um, the add-ons I typically run, my UI is Dominoes. It's kind of a clusterfuck, but I can just kind of compile it like all together and make it all like neat and cleaned up if that's something you're looking for. I don't know if you have the default WoW UI. I also have nameplates up here that are changed, so they're just like a little bit bigger and they look a little bit more user friendly. I have like the weak auras and stuff I was telling you about. These are just the ones I have on my paladin. I have this one for mists that solves the maze for us, and then these are the other ones for my other tunes that use them. If you want one, let me know, and I'll definitely find you one that you like. If there is none that you like, I'll just go ahead and make you one based on your preferences and how big you want your buttons and stuff like that. Obviously, you can't actually click them to set the keybind off, so you would have to click the actual keybind. But that's just a way of tracking your cooldowns in the center instead of looking all the way down at the bottom of your screen because that's kind of a habit you would like to break because especially when you're raiding or fighting a boss, it's not too good to kind of be looking all the way down here at your feet, or it's better to be looking down here at your feet instead of down at your hotbar, so you can keep your eyes on if you're standing in a mechanic, or you can see what the boss is casting if you need to run up and hit interrupt on it or something. Most of the time you won't have to interrupt. That's normally the range job, but I have an add-on that also shows the team interrupts. So if someone doesn't interrupt, I can say like, oh, you had your interrupt up, you should have, but I don't normally like to do that. See if I can get over 20k here. I don't think I'll be able to. Maybe single target. No. Yeah, but that was a pretty bursty opener because I used everything correctly, and I got to, I want to say 18 or 19k. So, it just kind of helps to get into the rotation of as you're running into the boss, Judgment, Blade of Justice, Divine Storm if it's an AoE pack, or obviously Templar's Verdict if it's just a boss. And you can start playing around your Blade of Justice procs, and then if you don't get any after using like a Templar's Verdict or something, then you can start using the Crusader Strikes, which don't really do much, but they generate holy power. Um, and obviously Wake of Ashes is pretty good. obviously. You know, it does a lot of damage and it sets them on fire and shit. So I would really use that on like a trash pack, but if they're all spread out like this, don't just do it in the middle. They'd have to be pretty tightly packed together. Say like these boxes right here is an AoE pack, okay? If I were to Wake of Ashes, it would hit all of them, but if this stack and this stack were the two ads in the pack, it wouldn't hit both of them unless I like lined myself up. So that's also a pretty big thing with your Divine Storm legendary. Instead of like Divine Storming right here in the center of them like I was doing, you'd have to come over here and hit them because your legendary would also hit all of them, granting you more damage and killing the pack quicker, which is kind of something you have to get the hang of because that'll definitely help if you're constantly hitting them multiple times over and over again. It definitely helps in terms of getting the key over quicker and just overall survivability of the packs if we have a weak healer, and sometimes we do. So that'll pretty much wrap up the rotation segment and whatnot. I'll get you a video of like a +2 and how it looks in gameplay and stuff later today, and hope you have a happy Thanksgiving.